Hey everybody, Tim Dwyer here from South Australia. How you doing? Hope everybody had a peaceful Christmas and behaved themselves, not over New Year. Hey, the hourglass beside me, the sands are running and they're running quickly. And I do want to bring something of great importance to you. What I want to do is I'd like to introduce you to a concept and some documents that might be of great value. You know, a lot of people have said, how do we stop the government? How do we stop this runaway train that's destroying Australia, destroying every aspect of what you and I know as Australia? Well, we may have just found a way. So stick with me through this video. Don't leave. I know sometimes my videos get a little bit long, and if you must, come back and watch the second half, okay? Because there is something in here that I think will be just blow your mind, okay? So once again, let me share the screen. Let me get this up here. Let me dig in here and find out where they've all gone. Where is it? There it is. And open that up. All righty, so Australia, my home, my people, and my place. And I will defend it against all who would come against it, foreign and domestic. Let's move on. I have a philosophy that says that if it's not right, then by definition, it must be wrong. All right, hold on to that thought. If it is not right, then by definition, it must be wrong. Now, attention must be paid to this document and the process. This is chapter 12. This is our constitution. I'm not going to go through it all. This is just a snippet, right? Right at the very beginning, it says an act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia, 9th of July, 1900, whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, and Tasmania, Western Australia came on a little bit later, humbly relying on the blessings of Almighty God, now listen to this, have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth under the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and under the Constitution hereby established. That's our agreement, to be under the Constitution hereby established. You get it? Let's move on. An act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia, 1900, whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, and Tasmania, and as I said, Western Australia came on it, humbly relying on the blessings of Almighty God, have not agreed to unite in one unlawful corporation commonwealth under the crown of the nullity, the Queen of Australia. You see, at law, fraud violates everything. Anything done in fraud, it has no standing at law. Let's move on. Part 5 in the Constitution says the powers of the Parliament. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have the power to make laws for peace, order, and good government of the Commonwealth with respect to, and it goes through and gives you all the areas where they can make laws in that. Not any other unlawfully amended, altered, and treasonably acted document. No, subject to this Constitution, the 1901, before Gough Whitlam and his treasonous mates, the Commo Gough and the Commo Bob and the Commo everybody else since then. I don't care what colour flag they're flying, they have all committed it. Moving on. Whoops. Now, in relation to councils are out of control, and they're bringing in all this crap about smart cities, and it's just out of control. So let's have a look at this. In 1988, councils seek constitutional recognition. Constitutional law expert Professor Greg Williams said that whilst 2 attempts at including local government into the Constitution had failed, the latest declaration had the best chance of success. Right? He also said Without constitutional backing, local government could also be the victim of opportunistic state and territory politicians who use it as a political football. So the state and federals can bounce the local governments around any way they like. Let's have a look here. In 1988, the referendum was held on the 3rd of September. It contained 4 referendum questions, none of which passed. Let's have a look here. For the local government to be recognised by the Constitution, it failed. It was not carried. It failed miserably, right? States in 0.6, right? Unbelievable. So they've now had their 3 strikes. You can only try the referendum 3 times. They're out. They can never, ever get constitutional recognition. Now let's have a look at the Local Government Act, which, by the way, was introduced by the drunken Fabian Society, Bob Hawke, who was communist to the back teeth, right? Now the council is a body corporate. Think about that. The council is a body corporate. What does that mean? Well, it's like any other corporation. It has to abide by corporate laws, and everything must be of a contractual nature. All right. The council is a body corporate. The council, to be a body corporate status, council is a body corporate with perpetual succession and a common seal, right? They are corporations. They've got ABN numbers. Moving right along. A council, and this is also written in there, a council must not do anything inconsistent with the law of a state or the Commonwealth, not their fake Commonwealth, the real Commonwealth. Now, think about this. The courts of Australia have long held that council rates are a tax. Yet, under the Australian Constitution, the parliaments of the states do not have the power of taxation. John Howard and Peter Costello and the Commissioner of Taxation, Mad Dog Carmody, as they used to call him, all stated before the introduction of the infamous goods and service tax, quote, local government council rates will attract no GST because council rates are a tax and we can't tax a tax, but the states don't have the right of taxation. Also, the High Court of Australia ruled that the state governments couldn't raise any tax, and because of this, state excise on fuel, tobacco and alcohol was removed. It can be clearly seen in the authors of the Constitution were not allowing for any parliament other than the federal parliament to impose a tax. Moving right along, I think you might be starting to get a bit of a feeling for where this might be going. Hold on to your hat. So let's have a look at fee simple. All your land is in fee simple. And fee simple, there was a High Court ruling, there's been several, but I'm going to use this one. In 1923, and Justice Isaacs and Higgins and Duffy and Stark and a whole lot of people on the bench ruled this way. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole ruling. I'm just going to cherry pick a piece out of it. It is obviously right, therefore, to say that under Section 85, the Commonwealth holds the land for an estate of fee simple in possession, that having no reference to any tenure under the state. The title transferred by Section 85 is taken from the state, as I have already said, adversely to state law and by a law superior, and by that superior law is vested in the Commonwealth, and that the superior law is the sole source of title. It follows that nothing henceforth can depend on state registration, laws, or state laws of any kind containing onto land in fee simple. Fee simple. So the state has no right to tax you, charge rates, make you pay for a building permit, anything. Think about it. You see, our Smart Cities program is being rolled out under the false and deceptive and destructive climate change agenda. Now, I've already been through that, so I'm not going to go through that again. It's in one of the last few videos I did. But I'm going to ask you these questions. How much deception is acceptable from anybody? How much? How many lies are acceptable? If your child lied to you all day, every day, would that be acceptable? If your employees lied to you every day, would that be acceptable? If your boss lied to you every day, would that be acceptable? Would you put up with it, or would you put a stop to it? How much money can be stolen before it's deemed theft? Somebody comes into your house and steals $10. Oh, that didn't matter. It was only $10. Somebody comes in and steals $1,000. Well, now I'll complain about it. I'll go to the police. We've got to stop it. Well, what about if they came in and stole your whole house and your land and your car? Is that theft? Well, what about the governments and the councils? How much money are they taking from you unlawfully by threat? Is that theft? I would call it theft. How many promises can be broken before all trust is lost? How many times haven't you heard some highly educated, honourable politician start moving their lips, making promises, and not one of them has ever held up? So when do you lose trust in their system? When do you lose trust in them? How many times can somebody promise, and they never deliver? How do you trust them? You know the old saying in Australia, and it's the same all over the world. How do you know when a politician's lying? Their lips are moving. Or nowadays, they woke up that morning. How many times will you allow yourself to be fooled? You know, there's an old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You've been fooled, we've been fooled, we've all been fooled 1,000 times. When will you put a stop to it? Yeah, but Tim, how do we put a stop to it? I'm sick of this crap. I know all this. How do we stop it? Hold on, we're getting there, right? At law, fraud violates everything. Those who commit fraud have no lawful standing. So here we go. It's called a smart city. No, it's a digital prison. Because if they called it a concentration camp, you might not want to live there. And it's coming if we don't stop it. If we just sit quietly, it's going to roll right over the top of you, slap you up the side of the head like a, like a broken dog. Implied consent. What is it? Well, let me show you this. Under the surveillance laws here in South Australia, it's the same all over Australia, but I'm just using South Australia because that's the reference I've got. It is now unlawful to install, use, or maintain optical surveillance devices to record visually or observe a private activity without the express or implied consent of all parties to the activity. You drive down the road and there's cameras taking photos of your number plate, cameras taking photos of who's in the car. You're being surveilled 100,000 times a year, and you just sit quietly and you might go home and whinge and bitch about it, but you don't do anything about it. Reminds me of Jack Reed's dog. Jack Reed had an old hunting dog, and you go over to Jack's place to have a quiet beer, and the dog would be laying on the porch, and you'd be sitting there having a beer. And every now and again, Jack's dog would lift his head up and go, oh, and put his head back down again. And this went on and on and on. And I said to Jack, I said, mate, what's wrong with your dog? He said, oh, ain't nothing wrong with my dog. He said, he's just laying on a nail that's sticking into his ribs. Now, it's hurting him enough to complain about it, but it ain't hurting him enough to do anything about it. Are you Jack Reed's dog? Let's have a look here. Implied consent means you just go along with it. You just do it all day, every day, and you don't stop it. The legal term for implied consent refers to a situation in which it is assumed to accept something to be true without question or proof. Oh, there's nothing we can do about it. Just is. No. A person consented to something by his actions. This means that although the person has not given verbal or written consent, circumstances exist that would cause a reasonable person to believe the other had consented. So by the time you just go along with it, you don't complain, you don't write a letter, you don't go into your local council, your local politician. And so you have acquiesced, you have complied through implied consent. Now, the time has come for all of Australia to withdraw its consent. Remember, right at the front of our Constitution, an act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia. Whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania, humbly relying on the blessings of Almighty God, we have not agreed to unite in one unlawful corporation, a Commonwealth under the crown of the nullity, the Queen of Australia. We did not agree to this. And therefore, here in Australia, the government is a government by consent of the people. If the people do not consent, now, oh yes, but Tim, we voted. No, you didn't vote. Your voting card had part or all of your name in uppercase, made you a legal fiction. You, the man or woman, did not vote for those people. The corporation voted for the corporation. Moving right along. Here is a letter, right? Now, what I want to do is, this is for South Australia, and this has been put together by myself and some other like-minded people who are deep in the fight. All right. And this is really something. So we send this. This is basically going to the local councils. We can send it to anybody. We can send it to councils. We can send it to the premiers. We can send it to anybody. And it is a legal document, and we will make sure it stands up in court. Anyway, here we go. Not negotiable, non-transferable, without recourse. Sorry, stumbling on my words. A time-sensitive document, estoppel conditions apply for public filing. Our reference, WC, withdrawing of consent, 2023. All right. Now, official and sensitive. Over here, where you see in the green, these documents will be a Word document we'll put out, and you can change, put your name and all that sort of stuff in there. And being a South Australian document, it's already pretty much set up. We can easily set it up for Victoria, Queensland and everybody else. And speaking of Victoria, I think it's time that the mentally insane man called Andrews was locked back up in the asylum. But anyway, here we go. Sent via registered post delivery, whatever the date is, attention, the proper officer. And this is going to the head of Local Government Association, Dean Johnson. Goes to there. And then what we do is, one, this letter serves as a notice that with immediate effect, the undersigned now withdraws any and all consent to being under surveillance by any device in operation by any council within South Australia or any other state, including but not limited to facial recognition device, number plate reading device, audio recording device, and or GPS. And you are noticed that this withdrawal is permanent and non-negotiable. The undersigned has never willingly agreed to being tracked, monitored, or governed by an incorporated body. Okay. Now, the numbering is correct on this page. On all the other pages, because of the way I cut and paste it, the numbering is wrong from here on in, but it flows in numerical sequence. One, you are noticed the Surveillance Device Act of South Australia, and this is pretty much word for word the same in every state, states that an offence of a person to knowingly install, use, or maintain an optical surveillance device on or in premises, a vehicle, or any other thing, a PowerPoint, a light pole, a building, whether or not the person has lawful possession or lawful control of the premises, vehicle, or thing, to record visually or observe the carrying on of a private activity without the express or implied, there's that word again, implied consent of each party to the activity. Did you get a notice giving your written consent to being tracked and traced? No? Then you have given your implied consent by not stopping it. We need to stop it. You are now noticed the maximum penalty of the breaches of the Surveillance Devices Act in South Australia is $15,000 or imprisonment for 3 years. That is per offence. That is per offence. As the Act states, implied consent is considered consent, meaning if the undersigned remains silent, then consent is granted and the undersigned now emphatically withdraws any form of consent. And furthermore, due to the knowledge gained, the undersigned now demands that any and all records that are held by the LGA of South Australia, ABN number, whatever, councils, and any arm and department of this SA government, state government, ABN number, that includes any facial recognition, number plate recognition, audio recording, or GPS location that holds data containing the undersigned's image, voice, or number plate data to be destroyed. You are noticed proof of destruction of the above mentioned records required in the form of a duly sworn affidavit. And, oh man, I'm running out of breath. And you are noticed that the corporation has 28 working days from the date of receipt of this correspondence to comply, and you must immediately cease and desist from any further breach of the Surveillance Devices Act for taking on retaliatory action against the undersigned or any other type of retaliatory harassment or actions. And you must immediately cease and desist from further breaches of the Surveillance Act. I did that twice. Sorry, guys. Further, paragraph 8, you are requested by the undersigned to acknowledge receipt of this notice of withdrawal of consent, your agreement to cease and desist from the above described activities by signing below and returning the signed original document to this office within 28 days from the date of receipt. Now, what we've got this full document, then we've got another document done that all they've got to do is sign it and send it back, and they've got a, that way they have acknowledged. Now, if they do not acknowledge and do not cease and desist, it is our full intent to take them into court, every council in the state, every council in the bloody country, for breaching the Act. All right. So there we go. We just finished that off. Now, from Black's Law Dictionary, right? Tacit consent. He who is silent is supposed to consent. The silence of a party implies his consent. He who is silent is considered assenting. He who is silent does not indeed confess, yet it is true that he does not deny. Black's Law Dictionary. If you do not physically withdraw your consent, then you are consenting and agreeing with smart cities coming into your town, full-on surveillance, the whole lot. And we can now extend this document to cover many aspects of what they call government. Right? Remember, governments lie about everything, and you are programmed not to question anything and to hate those of us who do. Do not consent. Withdraw your consent. It is your lawful, moral, and ethical right to withdraw your consent to any unlawful corporation who wishes to do you or your property harm, destroy your freedom, control every aspect of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not smart cities. They are electronic prisons. The laws that are being passed in Victoria at the moment are just unbelievable. I think everybody in Victoria must have taken sleeping pills. However, we will not sleep. We will not rest. We will fight, and we will push back, and we will, well, we'll win, because we don't have a choice. We've got other stuff going on which will come out in a couple of weeks that I'll speak to you about. But right now, I'm going to make that whole document available in several places. You can, if you wish, go to action@ourtrueaustralia.com and email a request for that letter. I'll repeat that. That is action@ourtrueaustralia, or one word, .com, and I'll send those letters out to you. You can alter them and put your own bits and pieces in there. That's all in a Word document. And this time, this isn't an idle threat to the government. This is an absolute promise. You do not respond and do not cease and desist, then you will be in court. And understand, we've just about got the courts euchred so as that they will have to, I mean absolutely have to, rule in accordance to the true law. My name's Tim Dwyer from South Australia. You guys have a great day, and the fight rages, and we still fight, and you still fight. And remember that evil is everywhere. The biggest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince people he didn't exist. Catch you later, guys.